just run through and make them sit here.
Yeah.
We used to go and get the fun. Have you ever done the fun?
No, but I've heard incredible things.
Mayor, the public hearing for the rezone, the gentleman, Matt Ingram, will be appearing by Zoom.
Who?
Matt Ingram,
What's he?
he's on behalf of the property owners. He's representing the property owner on the rezone.
Oh, you talking about the one on,
The
Second,
second, yeah, this one here.
okay.
Okay?
One of public. Okay. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming in. If you'll stand with me for a moment of silence, and then we'll have the pledge. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the Zia symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
All right, thank you, everyone. I think we're getting the sign-up sheet over here. Can I have a roll call, please, ma'am?
Mayor Crawford,
Here?
Counselor Eby. Here. Counselor Letterman.
Here.
Counselor Salas.
Here.
Counselor Hooker.
Here.
Counselor Jackson.
Here.
And Counselor Corey.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
All right, can I get a motion for the approval? What's this one? Public hearing, and this is general? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the agenda and also to allow the chair to move items for discussion at will.
Second.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please, ma'am.
Counselor Jackson.
Aye.
Counselor Hooker.
Aye.
Counselor Corey.
Aye.
Counselor Salas.
Aye.
Counselor Letterman.
Aye.
Counselor Eby.
Aye.
Okay, I hope everybody understood. We have one to speak on the public hearing, and then we had one that was just general input. Did everybody get on the right one? If you just want to stand up and say something, then you sign up on just the regular general input. Okay, you want it on this one? Yeah, I can sign it. Okay, you want to make sure he can get that signed? We want to make sure everybody has a chance. Sometimes it gets confusing if you don't do this every day. And then the other one is public input on
The public hearing.
the public hearing. And we have two. Okay, we good?
I think they're going to want to be on the other one.
They didn't understand.
Yeah, well, they're. Yeah, the public hearings are going to be on the adoption of the ordinance, the STR, short-term rental, and then the second one will be on the zoning, the planning commission case that's located off the rezone off Highway 70. So that's the public hearings. The other one is if you just want to stand up and talk about anything. Like the halftime show, let's just leave that crap alone. I don't want to know about any messages.
There was?
There's messages.
Oh, okay.
I didn't understand it, so I'll just leave it at that.
No, I tried to get
Okay, we good?
those captions.
Well, while we're signing that in, and Yvonne will take care of that, we'll go ahead and move on to consent regular items. We have approval of, this is really pretty short.
Yeah, it is.
Consent regular items, approval of governing body minutes for the January 14th, 2025 regular meeting, January 28th, 2025 special meeting, thank you, January 28th through the 29th, 2025 workshop meeting, strategic planning, thank you everybody in all the departments, February the 4th workshop meeting.
Mayor, I move approval of the consent regular items.
Second.
Okay, we have any further discussion? Roll call, please, Jenny.
Counselor Corey?
Aye.
Counselor Jackson?
Aye.
Counselor Hooker?
Aye.
Counselor Salas?
Aye.
Counselor Letterman?
Aye.
Counselor Eby?
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to public input. This is just, we have is it 5 minutes? 5 minutes, and you be nice and just introduce yourself. And, I don't know, Angie, did you draw your name line through this one? I can't tell. We got it on both.
If we can't speak for public input, then we need for the short-term rentals.
Well, this one's for public input on anything, and then we'll have the one on the specific items. Okay. Next is Brian Hope. Come on down, Brian. And then just hit the little button on the, should be green.
Mr. Holt, I'll be giving you a 2-minute warning.
Okay, so it won't take long at all, just a quick
Okay.
thing. Do I need to actually hit the button or just voice
Is it
activate?
on green? Yeah, it's good.
It's on green.
Yes, it's
Great.
good.
I live by the airport, and I noticed a whole bunch of bags out there for, the water
Yes.
erosion and all that stuff. I've dealt with these bags before, and they last about a year and a half or 2 years, so we got a lot of time. But direct sunlight, the UV just deteriorates those white bags really bad. So they need to be covered with black plastic to keep the UV light off, or moved them out of the light somewhere, which is a lot because there's thousands of them out there.
Yep.
So when it goes time to even need them in the future or moving them or getting rid of them, it's going to be really difficult when the bags are all deteriorated, the sand's everywhere, and trying to get forklifts in there. And it'll be a real pain to do all that.
Yep.
But that's it, just.
Oh, well, thank you.
Just an
And-
observation.
And you sent me an email on that, and we discussed that. I didn't even, be honest with you, I dropped by there, didn't even notice them, but you're right.
Oh, there's thousands, just
Yep.
pallets and pallets and.
Yeah, we've moved them, so unfortunately, we're probably going to need them. So we're working on what we can get to protect them or get them
Yeah.
used.
It's a pain only if they're not used, basically.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. There's another example of we don't see everything, or sometimes we drive by it every day, and we don't, and so we appreciate people letting us know. Mayor reports, presentation of new employees. This is always a good time because we, for a village our size, it's really amazing that we have the quality of employees that we do, and I hear about it all the time when we're at functions with the municipal league, when we're in Santa Fe. There's so many things that the village does right, and it's because of so many of you I see on the back road, and I'm very sorry that we had 2 more water leaks caused by our boring. Again, that we're, for those of you that don't know, we're getting very close to having fiber throughout the whole community. And in some areas, they're boring under pavement, under roads. And even though we mark water lines and whatever, they're not always where they're supposed to be. And sometimes that bore moves, and so we have water breaks. So thanks to the water team and also to Kinetic for staying after it. I know it's a pain, so we appreciate it. Presentation, Adam Hutton, Parks and Rec Tech. Started January 27th. There you go. Stand up. Now, I'm not trying to embarrass you, okay? But just tell us, are you from here? How did you get here?
I live in Ruidoso, and I transferred from the Forest Service to Parks and Rec.
Oh, you did, from the Forest Service. Okay, so I imagine he's real happy about that, isn't he? Yeah, he's not so happy. Oh, yeah, we're still in speaking terms. Okay. Well, we're glad to have you. Hopefully you enjoy it over there. You guys are busy all the time, and I know you got Adam and T-Bones in Washington, D.C. on the Keep America Beautiful grants and all of that, so we appreciate you. Thank you
Yeah,
for
thank you.
staying with the village. Oh, the National Force. Oh, so that's a score. Usually they're ripping us off, so congratulations. We're very glad to have you.
She's
Where's
sitting in there, she's laughing.
I see the deputy do, there, she's hiding. There she is. Yeah, Amanda, there you go. So Matthias Running Water, Parks and Rec Maintenance. Hello, Matthias, thanks for coming in. Are you local? No, sir, I'm from Tularosa. Oh, you're out of Tularosa. Well, you know, are you related to him?
Julie.
Okay, well, if it wasn't for Tularosa, I don't know what we would do. So, but we're glad to have you. Hopefully you find a home here, and in 25 years, we'll be talking about your retirement. Somebody will. So anyway, thank you, Matthias.
Wait, are you kin to Jimmy? That's what I thought.
Okay, I think that concludes that for now. And then we'll move on to village manager's report. Ron?
All right, Mayor and Council, first of all, we're going to have an update here on the floodplain mapping, and we have Brad here with Cobb Finley, and Ashley's going to join us. Mr. Brad?
And I know everybody's waiting on this one. We appreciate Cobb Finley doing such a bang-up job. You guys have been working on it 7 days a week. I see your crews out here. But this is so that we can get the new floodway, floodplain, the hydrology and hydraulics. So people that are in the area that had homes damaged or washed away will be able to find out if they're going to be able to rebuild.
And as we've said before, Mr. Mayor, if I may, it's not completely up to us.
Right.
FEMA drives the train on whether or not you can or can't come back, because then they could not insure us. We could get denied federal funding for the rest of time, so throwing that out there.
Bank loans and insurability too.
Brad, if you could introduce yourself, and you might even, some of the staff you're working with, and then we have Ashley here will be joining you.
Is that on?
Now it is.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you for the opportunity to visit with you today. I know we've been in contact over the last several months regarding our analysis of both the impacts of the fire and then the extent of what we're experiencing now for flooding. I've been working really closely with Ashley. We probably are on the phone with each other 2 or 3 times a week. Michael Martinez as well has been an integral part, along with Eric.
Queller?
Yes, sir. Who's your emergency response manager. So thank you again for allowing us to continue to support you. I brought along some exhibits today. I brought some that you have seen before, but I wanted to refresh everybody on the extent of the fire. So I've got the Salt Fire extents and then the South Fork Fire extents. You did see these back in October, the last time I was in front of council, and I just wanted to refresh everybody on the extent and impact of the fire. These particular maps illustrate the Upper Rio Ruidoso fire. Thank you. So this is just a refresher for everybody. These maps were generated by the Forest Service, and they basically identify the intensity of the burn and how badly the forest was damaged. Obviously, red is very high and then grading out to either low or unburned. I have visited some of these areas, and I can tell you that the extent of damage, particularly in the highly impacted areas, is devastating. I mean, it looks like a forest of black toothpicks. I did see a little bit of revegetation occurring because of the Forest Service efforts on some Forest Service land. I guess there was some oak grass starting to come up. So at least we're starting to get a little tiny bit of stabilization. But in general, what we've seen is this denuding of the watershed has created substantial issues whenever it rains, as we've all seen over the last year. Similarly, the Salt Fire, that's the other fire map, please, occurred in the Cherokee-Bill watershed, which is the one that discharges down along US 70 and affects the downs directly. You can see here the fire intensity wasn't quite as intense, but there's still enough damage such that we're seeing elevated flows, and recovery is going to be long and painstaking, particularly with what we're seeing for lack of precipitation, when we need it to help get vegetation reestablished, and, rising temperatures. So again, these were just a refresher. So what Cobb Finley has done since I was here back in late fall, we've completed a hydrologic model of the Upper Rio Ruidoso watershed. So that would be I think it's the 210 file. And I did present this back in October. It was, at that point, preliminary findings. So the black outline that we've dubbed the whale, because there's a tail off to the left and then the whale is swimming to the right, is the extent of the entire watershed that contributes to the Rio Ruidoso. It naturally starts way up on the the Mescalero Reservation, and then our modeling efforts have included the entire watershed, because obviously water runs downhill, so you're getting elevated flows from areas that are outside the village limit. This model is now complete, and you can see off to the right, there's a small table that presents some information associated with what we're seeing at particular junctions. That's what the J stands for. So that's a point in the watershed where side canyons flow into the main stem of the river. And so we have completed the modeling such that we can now tell you at these various junction points what kinds of flows we can anticipate. And this is a reflection of what FEMA requires, which is the 100-year storm. I want to clarify that point quickly. Many people perceive that the 100-year storm means it only happens once every 100 years. In fact, it's more of a probability function such that it can anytime it rains, that storm could happen 1% of the time. So I have actually seen in Albuquerque, where I live and work, we've had successive 100-year storms in the period of a couple of weeks. They weren't long duration storms. They didn't go on for 24 hours, but they were very short, high intensity events that were only the 1% chance event, but we got 3 of them in about a 10-day period. And it tore up the tramway and I-25 intersection off-ramp where they had just finished doing a bunch of earthwork. So DOT was in there with loaders moving lots of soil for several weeks. That being said, you can see as you traverse eastward down through the watershed, and if you can go to page 2 on this particular figure, we've zoomed in here specifically on within the village area and turned on the city streets, which, sorry, I still can't read from down here. But you can see as we head eastward through the watershed, you know, as we get down towards the very end of the village, we've now calculated or modeled a result of 27,000 cubic feet per second, which doesn't really mean a whole lot, but in general, what you can see now when you look at the Rio Ruidoso is we're somewhere in the neighborhood of between 10 and 20 cubic feet per second. So our modeling is showing that when it rains a lot in the watershed, we're going to get a lot of water coming down the river. So the hydrologic modeling is complete for this particular watershed. We've also completed analysis of the Carrizo Creek watershed, which is it just encompasses from the dam downstream. The dam effectively acts like a shock absorber on the system. So the upper part of that watershed is going to be intercepted by the dam. So there's just a small portion of that got incorporated into our modeling. We're moving towards completing our hydrologic modeling of the Cherokee Bill watershed. We look to have an operating model there and start producing results, if not later this week, then early next week. Do you want me to mention the DOT efforts? So we've been contacted by the Drainage Bureau at the DOT through discussions with Ashley and Michael and the Drainage Division at the state office in Santa Fe. We're now cooperating with them with respect to looking at solutions and impacts to the downs based on the results of our modeling. So we're basically coordinating with them daily on how we're proceeding, this, you know, the parameters that we're including. So what has initially been just us working away is now turned into more of a cooperative effort with other agencies who are lending their expertise. So we'll have good answers regarding what we can see impacting the downs very soon. Concurrent with this, we now have our expert team in our Houston office, our hydrology and hydraulics team, doing floodplain extent analysis, which is the product that we will present to FEMA when it's time for revision of the floodplain maps. We had presentations with them yesterday and showed their first cut at what the floodplain is going to look like. I think counselors got their questions answered yesterday through those small work sessions. And we should see formal results of that probably in the next couple of weeks. And ideally, we would like to be back here in front of you next month to show you the formal results of that. And I may actually bring one of our experts in from Houston to make that presentation.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
question for
Yes, sir.
Ashley. Could you, for the benefit of the public, kind of walk through what the timetable looks like as far as adoption of the map and
Yes, definitely. So like Brad's team's been working diligently on this, and he's just needing to put in some last minute information, mainly the bridges and then probably some of the culverts, the data they've actually been out there collecting, because that can impact the floodplain itself. It can make some areas a little bit wider because, as Brad described it, it kind of backs up that water, so a bridge, only so much water can go through that. And so because of that, we are having to postpone to the March meeting to bring a finalized map to you guys for adoption. This is going to be the upper Ruidoso that Brad has been presenting on. It's pretty much everything besides Camelot and Highway 70. Because his team is still working, or they're getting ready to finish up the Cherokee-Bill area. We'll be bringing that to you guys in April for adoption of that second part of the floodplain.
so, Ashley, as it relates to the map being presented for council approval in March, how and when will that information be available to the public?
Our goal is we're going to review it internally and just make sure that all of our questions are answered and we're ready to go. We will be notifying the public that the map is ready to go. Our goal is to have it online that the public can review what section they are in within the floodplain. Are they within the 100-year floodplain? Or are they in the regulatory floodway? Or are they just outside the floodplain? So our goal is to go ahead and let the public know before it is brought to you guys. So that way, hopefully, village staff can help filtering through some of those questions before it comes to you guys, and we can help out the public. as
Brad,
much as
from
possible.
a practical standpoint, does FEMA ever come in and second guess the findings?
Typically, Counselor, the process is we make a formal submittal to FEMA, which includes all of our analysis, all of our models, a formal report, and then they typically have a third-party reviewer, and generally it's another engineering consultant that has that contract for FEMA, and they will basically step through everything that we've done. And there's generally a lot of back and forth for an extended period because they want clarification on a particular element or expanded discussion in our report. So that, I've seen those processes take quite a long time.
But from what your team said yesterday, the map, the council will be able to adopt and we'll be able to start issuing building permits. We're not gonna wait for
No.
FEMA to do anything else.
No, the direction we were given was to bring a map to council, and we made sure it was to FEMA standards, so we wouldn't have any issues when this was presented to FEMA. The direction was, create a map, look at the new floodplain, that way you can start issuing building permits and people can move forward. If we waited around for FEMA, you're looking at 5+ years before they would even get over
Or
here.
20.
And we need to make sure that we're protecting our residents when they do build back and protect them from future floods. That's our ultimate goal.
So it can be an adoption as a local ordinance, so to speak, but we'll continue through the FEMA approval process, but you'll have a mechanism in place that will meet those standards. Once we get through the process with them, then the floodplain maps would be revised.
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
just what, Brad, so we're going to have, so we don't have the bridges. Some of our bridges are still out. The span bridges that we want haven't been put in. So if we're going to look at, So how are we going to do that when the bridges are going to cause the water to go over the bridge because it's funneling? So your maps are going to show both ways?
So in the near term, Counselor, the map will reflect conditions as they stand now, because that would be the most conservative means of protecting the public. In the event, for example, we saw last year, the bridges got plugged up with debris. The floodplain was really wide. I saw it myself.
Right.
And so in the near term, it's better to work using the existing infrastructure in the interest of public safety. But concurrently, a separate activity Ashley and Michael have us endeavoring at the moment is, or getting started on, is we are going to evaluate what size structure should be constructed so that you will be able to accommodate these elevated flows.
Okay.
And then in the future, the modeling can then be updated to reflect either newly constructed structures or potentially projected structures. And that can be an amendment in the future.
Okay. So an amendment.
Jim, go ahead.
That's all I had, Mr.
So,
Mayor.
does anybody else have any questions?
Just a comment, our sincere appreciation. Your folks were out 7 days a week. We appreciate them jumping on top of this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council.
Mr. Eby?
The question was really for Ashley and for our department there, because in viewing the modeling that during the presentation yesterday that we was given, that was a pretty interactive type of modeling system. So do we have any comparable software? Are we going to have something similar that you can go on to and just click on a property or just put your cursor over it and it gives you the depth of water anticipated during a major event? Because I can see that be a very useful tool.
We're not gonna have like an interactive model that you were seeing per se. However, as part of this task order, or one of the task orders we've at least done with Cobb Family is to estimate what's known as the base flood elevation, and that's gonna be the depth of the property. And so when the building inspectors are looking at floodplain maps and determining how a property can build back, they have to look at the base flood elevation. And then per the ordinance that you guys had adopted, they're gonna have to go 2 feet above the base flood elevation. So we will have that elevation of how deep that water is going to get in that particular spot for a 100-year flood. And then the building inspectors can make sure it's getting 2 feet added to that to meet ordinance requirements and federal regulations.
The other thing I can add, Counselor, is the output of our modeling can be formatted such that it can be incorporated into the village GIS database, which I know Ashley is very adept at managing. So she can then pull up her mapping software and then look at what the floodplain extent is and then be able to make those interpretations as she just mentioned.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you, Brad. There's
Thank
no
you very
public
much.
comment. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Go ahead, Ron.
Mayor Crawford, members of the council, is going to have Adam Sanchez come up, our Public Works Director, give an update on our water line project that's going to be beginning. And just want to let all the audience know, all the residents, that this project's funded with general obligation bonds that have been taken to the voters every 2 years. We've been very fortunate that they've been voted in. And we utilize these fundings with any of our SGRT funds. So this is going to be a huge project for everyone living in the country club area. And I'll have Adam give some really where the area is at, what streets are involved in that whole project. Thank you, Adam.
Mayor, Council, actually, the funding was through Water Trust Board and GeoBond, so it was a cocktail of funding. As you know, it's the Country Club High Loop subdivision. So it's going to be High Loop, Wildwood, Madera, Lupine Loop, Coronado, all the places up in there. You're looking at 18,600 linear feet of water line replaced and approximately 40 new fire hydrants and all new services. So we did go out for procurement for this. As you know, J&H Services was procured through our procurement, and the start date is March 3rd.
Well, that's nice.
J&H is the one that did, or Pine Cliff area.
Pine Cliff, yes. They did a really good job, and they knocked it out quick. They actually came in
They did.
before, so.
Did a great job.
Really good.
And I know you guys are working on Starlight. that
Yes.
We had a meeting today.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Morning. Yep, tomorrow morning,
So
the
we'll get
engineer will be
moving on that
down,
one.
and we'll get that going. Hopefully a design build on that one.
Okay.
Do you think you'll be done with that before June?
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna push to get it done.
Mayor Crawford, Councilor Lutterman, the funding that we have dedicated to this project has to be expended by June 1st, so we're going to make sure it happens quickly.
If I can get Josh to just go throw boxes in there.
Yes.
Adam, is the culvert at Starlight going to be larger?
Yes, we have 6-foot culverts on site at the street shop, and that's what we're planning on using, unless something comes in different, but I think that's gonna be adequate for that. With Starlight, it's actually we're gonna design Paradise also, so hopefully we can get both those knocked out at the same time, so we don't have a bottleneck.
Okay.
So Mayor and Council, just a couple of other items. We had our State of the Village. Mayor, you again did your village address. It was a lot of information. I want to thank all the directors, managers, departments, all the staff. We did our strategic planning session, goal setting. We had that the end of January also. There was counselors, the mayor and staff also attended the Lincoln County Days in Santa Fe. That went very well. So we met with legislators and, we're always there. We're still fortunate. We're always fortunate. The mayor is the president of the New Mexico Municipal League, and we're able to visit with different legislators and lobby for funding for the village for a lot of needs that we have. And so we'll continue that on with the New Mexico Municipal Day, which is going to be on February the 28th. And Mayor and Council, I'll stand for any additional questions.
Okay. I know everybody looked through his report. Any additional questions?
Great report.
Okay. And we are putting in plumbing utilities at 603 Meacham, which is the new housing development for the 10 modulars.
That's correct. Also, Adam's working with General Hydronics on the entrance. We're going to be widening the entrance there, placing some additional curbing, and that's all. We have to meet the specifications of the Department of Transportation, so that'll be happening also.
Okay. And then the 72-unit apartment complex, still in March, we're looking.
Yes, we did receive the drawings were stamped by the CID, the State of New Mexico Construction Industries Division. Mid-March, 1st of April, we should be seeing groundbreaking.
Okay.
So,
Thank you very much. We'll move on. No questions. We'll go ahead and move on to reports from municipal officials. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. Once again, always thanking the village staff and all that they do, and I'll give a shout out to the fire department that sends a crew of 3 men and a fire truck to California to help in that assisting there as they got called, and I believe there was a team of firefighters throughout New Mexico that went and assisted, so I want to give them a shout out. And as always, our staff here in City Hall, they answer the phone now that we got our phones working. Somewhat better, but yet their quick response is what I appreciate. And even me calling, trying to disguise my voice, which I can't do, they catch me every time and they get me, trying to give them a hard time, but no, they know it's me and it goes on. The other thing that I just found out this today, there's a high electric transmission line that's going to be coming through the eastern part of our state. There is a town hall meeting at the college at 6 o'clock. I'll be honest, I don't know anything about it, so that's going to intrigue me of, is that another power source or my dream of having another power plant built, closer in Oklahoma or northern Texas or something, so. But other than that, Mayor, thank you.
I think it's about sending power to California.
That's what I figured.
SunZia is what that's all about. So, and then also our fire department, do we still have a crew over at Cottonwood? Where's the chief? Yes. We do. That's over Capitan on the Block Ranch. So over 3,000 acres. Where are we at? That's the same? Okay, it's under control. Okay. Yeah, well, there's a fire over there, so we have a crew over there. So just help out if we can. Councilor Letterman?
Yes, coming in today, I just saw our new sign I love our new sign. And enjoyed going to Santa Fe with RMA, Tim and Eddie and Matt and 3 of the counselors. And it was a very good time. We had a nice time, got to know one another, and appreciate that. Thank you.
Excellent. Joseph?
Well, thank you, Mayor. Well, thank you for your State of the Village there. Last month, that was very informative. The village likes to be transparent and to put all the projects, all the events, everything that's happening in the village, whether it be good or bad, or fast or slow. So thank you for that. And the workshop meetings the end of last month were very informative. That's just really a precursor to the council adopting the budget. All the directors come forward with their needs, maybe a little bit on their wish list, and what monies are going to be required or asking for to operate their different departments. And that's always very helpful. Thank you for the directors, the departments, and the administration for putting that workshop together and bringing forth that information for their respective departments, because that really is helpful for us to have that preview of the upcoming budget requests. So thank you for that. And Santa Fe was good. We learned a lot about the Main Street project up there, and there's just a lot of money and grants out there. So if your department is eligible, or just look into those grants, because there's money out there. But other than that, we're just waiting for the year to unfold. I know there's a lot to unravel during the year, and there might be a lot more, well, I don't know what's easier, pushing or pulling at this point in time, but there's going to be a lot of both. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Jim. Councilor Hooker?
Mr. Mayor, I don't have anything. Just glad to be here. Thank you.
And he never misses an opportunity. I don't know what's going on. Dr. Jackson?
I won't impair on the good counselor's time. I wanted to say, first of all, it was really an honor and a privilege to be at the Roundhouse, not because I was there, but because they honored FFA. And they had memorials for all the different cities and villages around the state. And it was nice to see people much younger than me enjoying themselves and being so polite and so knowledgeable in what they do. Also, we met with Representative Vincent and found him to be very accommodating and very supportive of both Lincoln and Otero County, as well as the village and the city of Ruidoso Mounds. It seems like a partnership that will work well, and it was nice to see him as well, looking after everyone and trying to create a friendship and a handshake across many varied interests. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Councilor Corey?
Mayor, besides attending the Main Street Conference, which was a good thing, most of us attended Lincoln County Days. The County of Lincoln, the Village of Ruidoso, and the Mescalero Apache Tribe were well represented in the event. And as always, I appreciate the opportunity to learn more things and to meet people. Thank you.
And the chamber did a great job. Deborah
Yeah.
and her staff did a good job. We're just looking forward to getting the desilting of the Ruidoso started. We've been working on that for some time. We do have some right of entries that we do need to obtain, so we're reaching out to the public everywhere. It's all the way from the Mescalero line all the way through. So we're working on getting that done, and that needs to be done before we get into monsoon season. Also, the track we have on that department down there, because we calls every day about the track's viability, if it's going to be open. Yes, it's going to be open. We're having a meeting Thursday at 1 o'clock. I just got a text for a kickoff with the contractor. So that'll involve a lot of work down there. Desilting, a lot of that will be protecting not only Spaghetti Flats, but also our wastewater treatment plant. We'll be moving the sewer line. We already have the funding for it out of the river down there in the track. So Adam and his staff will be down there getting that done. And we have a ton of projects that are getting ready to start that we've had to go through all the engineering, all the different requirements that is and are, that we have to do. I mean, it's, so many of them are redundant, but we have been moving forward. So we're looking forward to that. Also, CID, the Construction Industry Division, will be working with our building department so that when we finally are able to show people where they can rebuild, how they can rebuild or whatever, that we'll be able to turn those building permits around very quickly. And so we appreciate Clay, the director there over CID, of making sure that we have plenty of folks. So we're looking forward to getting busy. There's going to be a lot of work. Thank everybody for their patience with all the big trucks going around. The police department has been working, passing out tickets for those. We've had some accidents, near misses, but we are watching those folks as closely as possible. So now we'll go ahead and move on to public hearing. Public hearing number 1 is public hearing for adoption of ordinance 2025-01, an ordinance amending the Village of Ruidoso Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapter 543. Is that correct? The 3, is that
Mayor,
right?
Council, no, it is not. It's Chapter 54.
Chapter 54.
Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't look right. Chapter 54, Land Use, Article 2, Land Development Code, Division 4 Zoning District, Section 54-72, Overlay Zones, and Appendix A, Fees, Fines, and Penalties. So up on deck is Alex. Are you coming? Is that you? Well, let me wait on you there. And Michael is out sick today, our deputy manager who's been working on this. He was sick yesterday.
Jacob is here.
And then, Jacob, are you coming on down? I am. And I want everybody to recognize Jacob. He's the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I appreciate all the hard work and the many public outreaches that you guys done. And it's you get to meet a lot of folks doing those.
You do,
So,
thank you, Mayor.
Anyway,
And congratulations on the new baby.
and the new baby. Yep.
Thank you. You look remarkably well rested.
My wife's doing the heavy lifting.
All right, thank you, Mayor, Council.
Tell us who you are, Alex, just so if.
Alex Koenig, the Community Development Director. And so short-term rentals falls administratively in the zoning code, or regulatorily in the zoning code, administratively in the Community Development Department. I also have Crisanti Jones. She is the administrative assistant who is in charge of the short-term rental program. Thank you also for allowing us the last-minute substitution of Michael for Jacob up here to support the presentation and answering questions that the council and public may have in regard to the proposed changes to the ordinance. So a bit of the background of how we've gotten to this point. A subcommittee of the Planning Commission made up of 3 members started last year in the spring with addressing questions, concerns in ways to better have the short-term rental program address the issues that they face here in the village, both there's many positive things that they bring, but there are, on occasion, there are some things that go sideways. And so in order to make the program more effective, they met with themselves, had a couple focus groups with the management companies that manage the many of the short-term rental properties here in the village, and then also with some of the residents that were particularly perhaps over-impacted by short-term rentals in their neighborhoods. Then also they scheduled a general town hall to discuss issues with short-term rentals that was canceled due to the South Fork fires. And so this past fall, the subcommittee got back together to reinitiate this and had additional discussions, developed a draft ordinance, which has undergone a number of revisions, the last one being with the Planning and Zoning Commission last week. And then also had the town hall meeting was held the last Thursday in January, well attended and also well monitored, and the folks that were present conducted themselves very cordially, and I think we've come up with a balanced and reasonable proposal with this ordinance and a fee schedule that will allow for the program to fully address or more fully address the needs and impacts of short-term rentals, and also to make it a more sustainable program that is funded by the permit fees in order to provide the service that it does. With that, I would allow Jacob, if he has anything additional that he wishes to add, and then, of course, we will be ready to answer questions.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Mayor, Council, thanks for allowing me to speak today. I think Alex did a great job of outlining how we got here today. Some items that he might have skipped or that I would like to emphasize is that we really reviewed the entirety of this ordinance, the entire short-term rental overlay ordinance, to ensure that we could have a sustainable program, a program that was accountable to all stakeholders, not just owners, not just managers, but our full-time residents. We wanted to ensure that there were clear ways that residents or those that have issues for short-term rentals could take action. And it was really designed to develop a department within the village to help manage these short-term rentals. As you know, the Village of Verdoso has always been a destination going back to the 20s and 30s for people that want to get out of the heat. And today that's no different. The difference being is that technology makes it more accessible. And with the changes of technology, the way that we approach that has to change as well. And so we want to ensure that it is a program that has the long-term goals of the village aligned with the ordinance. And so you'll see a number of changes specifically around the fee structure to help build out the department, around the accountability mechanisms, and then some of the technology that we have today that has already been presented, I believe, to the council in the past.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Jacob, as you might imagine, we've received quite a few comments. Almost all of them are just related to the fee itself. In your meetings and discussions, did you ever entertain the concept of maybe transitioning the fee over a period of a few years rather than implementing the large increase up front?
Yeah, Mayor, Councilor, the discussion around the fees is an interesting one. We looked at a number of peer communities, so communities such as Taos, communities in Colorado, other mountain communities that are a destination, and we tried to assess where our fee structure was compared to those communities, and then what the cost would be to have a sustainable program. So we weren't drawing down from lodgers tax, we weren't drawing down from the residents, but instead it was a sustainable program in that regard. Because of the changes that we proposed, the changes would require additional staff members, additional support in terms of the software. The cost is there, and so transitioning it would still have a negative impact and a more net negative impact because the fees wouldn't cover the cost. So in other words, if we make the changes today that we're proposing, if we don't increase the revenue to ensure that it's a sustainable program, we'd be in a deficit for the changes.
And speaking of the fees, Alex, looking at the agenda memorandum, a couple of things that I was a little confused about. You're indicating program operations of 110,000. Is that per year, or because it looked to me like several of these items were one time?
Thank you for your question, Councilman Corey. You are correct. That is a first-year number that is in there because $60,000 of that is estimated to be acquiring a new vehicle for the additional of a full-time inspector, which we currently do not have. But one of the changes in the ordinance would require annual inspections of properties rather than every other year. Sure. So that is one of those one-time fees that would be in there. Also, the acquisition of tablets for the inspector and the administrator so that they can be in the field, connected to the system, connected into, they can be more effective and efficient that way. So that's another one-time cost in there. The cell phone cost might be a little bit higher the first year with acquiring the actual cell phone. Again, also acquiring a desktop computer for the first year. So the ongoing costs would definitely be less than what that $110,000 would be. And so it would leave it then at the discretion of the council to, should they go along with what we're requesting here, to either in future years reduce the fee, for the permit fee, as the need would not be there, or redistribute that to other program needs yeah.
And Alex, two other quick questions on the third-party software, the $40,000, is that an annual license fee, or is that?
All of those are annual fees.
So these are all annual?
That would be an ongoing
And
cost.
under personnel, you're indicating $180,000 for a new full-time inspector, and then adjusting the short-term rental administrative. That number seems high.
That is the cost of not just salary, but that is salary and benefits
Okay.
for both of those positions.
Then the
So that
other
is the total
question
for two.
I have, and I understand, Jacob, you all in the fee design are trying to get the fees to sustain the administration of short-term rentals. At the current time, our costs are being subsidized in part by lodger's tax, is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
So in arriving at the, what is it, $565 annual fee, is that exclusive of lodger's tax money coming in?
So what the intention would be is the money that would currently come out of lodger's tax to support the short-term rental would be not coming out of lodger's tax. So there would be a net benefit to lodger's tax. So the entirety of the short-term rental program would be paid for.
It would be a standalone.
Would be standalone, paid for through the permitting fees.
Okay. And a final comment, Jacob, my sincere thanks to you and your group for working on this, and see where it goes.
Thank you.
So we are thinking about a full-time person just for short-term rentals.
For inspections and
But-
monitoring.
Will that be 24/7?
No, would you explain the program on the software about the 24-hour call service, and then just what this person would do? Because
Sure.
right now, reflective in his billing is out of general fund is the extra pickups on trash that we're having to do when we have to call solid waste out to
Yep.
pick up trash. Just the additional wear and tear and all the other things that go with it, the police calls. So
roads.
explain to us what the software is designed to do and why it costs so much.
Thank you, Mayor, Councilman Letterman. So the software is one of the components that would be more of a service with that would be, the vendor would be providing, is the 24-hour, 7-day-a-week monitored call center, which would supplement the work of our dispatch in order to take calls and complaints. The intention is also for them to work with property owners and the property management companies to be the first response in resolving those problems that are not publics, that are not where someone's in imminent danger, where it would need to be an emergency response.
So I have a problem, so I would call there instead of the police.
Yeah, yes, that would be what that service would be providing. They will be they will be working with our dispatch and our police department. If there is an issue that needs their immediate response, of course, that would immediately
But
go that direction.
too loud music,
Correct.
that's where I go.
So it would be, if we're a loud music complaint, that would be where that call would be, we would anticipate be initially, would go from someone that had a complaint of that nature. They would call that number. They would then call that property manager or their local contact person and say, we've had this issue brought up, and could you respond to address that before we bring in our public safety workers? Yeah.
If you will, I'll add a comment as well. The software is not only intended for the consolidated dispatch, so no matter who you have a problem with, call one number. If it's too many cars in the driveway or too many cars on the street, loud music, you call one number regardless of the property. So it consolidates that where you don't have to know or contact the property owner. The other aspect is it provides visibility into short-term rentals so we can more easily identify problem properties and problem managers. There's a number of folks that we talked with that are doing things the right way, but we can collectively understand that there's some folks that aren't doing it the right way, and the software gives us visibility into that and gives the public visibility. There's a public-facing site that has a list of all permitted short-term rentals. You can click on that site and drill into the parcel. So that way you don't have to have in your mind, is that one across the street actually permitted? It seems like there's different people there every weekend. How do I make sure? And so those are the other benefits of the software.
Just real quick, I didn't notice, do you have, so we have all of our real estate agencies that have our companies that maintain. Do we have anything that says, I am managing my house from Timbuktu, and I'm not going through a company? Is there anything that says that we have to have somebody in Ruidoso that if our company doesn't call, that we can at least get a hold of that company?
Yes, that is a requirement that in the current ordinance, we have a local contact person, which is an owner, representative, owner of local or property manager who either lives here in the village or within proximate, that they can be here within an hour or less.
Okay,
to respond.
what
So
if we don't have that right now?
And that is also one of, the full-blown program that we are looking to implement with the software program, with the changes to the ordinance, is that there will be, if there is a need for that local person to be reached, if they are not responsive within a half hour to a phone call from either the village staff, emergency staff, dispatch, or from our third-party vendor, that would be considered we'll call it an issue, an unresolved issue, that they have 3 of those unresolved issues, and at that point, we will then suspend their operation license, their permit license.
Can I add one more thing, Counselor? The current state is that there's only been 2 permit revocations over the last 6 years for short-term rentals across the whole program. The intentionality is to ensure that there's accountability, that there is somebody local and that they can respond. And then there's a clear step to either revoke the permit for the person that's not following the rules or that is not a local contact, and to ensure that the folks that are doing it the right way have visibility.
The only reason I ask is, this person did go to the meeting before the fire, was at the last one, did not say anything. She's talked to a lot of us about, she's got 4 houses around her. 3 of them are absolutely wonderful. Never have a problem. She's got one that's a party house. 250 strands of lights in the backyard. You can't, if they go out in the backyard, you can't see anything. You can't see the sky. Loudspeakers. They've already called the police 3 times in January. The person that they call the person, we need some help. This property is a party house, and it's sold that way from him. He doesn't respond, so it's hard. I have a hard time because we're running our neighbors out of our neighborhoods. And it's this kind of house that makes every other house that's doing the right things, the people, our companies are doing the right things. This is what causes a lot of stress and bad taste in your mouth. I just worry, how are we going to ensure that, because there needs to be consequence. If there's no consequence, they can call the police go, okay, yeah, we'll cut it down. The police leave, the music goes up. So I just need, me, myself, I need to know that this program that's going to cost a lot of money and that we have a person that's going to respond. Because I think that that's important, that our property, that the neighbors are able to find somebody to help them. It's not fair. It's
And
not fair for our
I will
residents.
start with the response on that. I'm pretty sure that both Christie and Jacob will also have things to add, being that they've been in this community much longer than I have. I will also start off by also saying that the majority of the homes that are being operated as short-term rentals, we do agree, are well-managed. They are
Yes.
not problematic. And so with this new program that we're looking to put in place, the two components that are there would be the online response and the complaint form that people could fill out, and also the 24/7 call center. The other part is the accountability that Jacob keeps touching on, is we will have the public-facing portal that would allow for anyone to see that there is a short-term rental, that is, if it's licensed, and that they would have that local contact person listed there. So if they would wish to reach out to that local contact person to say, before I call the police or before I call the complaint number, I'm giving you an opportunity to address this. But with that, the 24-hour monitored call center, they're also going to be supplementing the responsibilities that the dispatch has in there. Also, the complaints will come back to us as staff. They already do to some point on that. But then we will have a better idea of what is actually happening out there. We have already worked with the police department to coordinate better with dispatch with the complaints that they get, so that we can also address after the fact, so to speak, with those property owners, management companies, that there was an issue at a property. So that they are aware of that and knowing with that. And then also with moving on to the ordinance changes and the additional revenue that would be generated to enable to respond, we would be giving additional revenue resources to the police and fire department and the code enforcement to be able to respond to issues as they come about, whenever it happens. From accountability, we're, again, building a system that puts the accountability back on the property owners and managers to ensure that their tenants, their guests, are following the rules, are being responsible, are being good neighbors while they're here in the village, in neighborhoods. And so the expectation, the reality is, they will be that first response of, if there's a problem, they will be expected to fix it.
Okay, Alex, I think you covered all that, but what she's saying is, he's thumbing his nose, and we do have a few of those.
Yep.
What are you gonna do? It's got
So at
teeth
that-
in it.
so, yeah,
How do you
at
keep
that
track
point,
of
yeah.
it, and
So,
what are you
yeah.
gonna do?
We'll be keeping track of that, and so our system that we will be building, we informally call it a three-strike system. And within the ordinance, it.
But why
lists-
aren't we doing it now?
Right?
Counsel,
Yeah, yeah,
I'd be
yeah,
happy
yeah.
to jump in. So right now, the only strike that you get is if there is a documented citation by the police, and there's no tracking and visibility outside of the documented citation from police. Even when, to the owner, not even those that are there. So if they have
Okay.
a unpermitted fire, they aren't getting cited from that, from the fire. So all of this is intended to give more tracking, more visibility. So if there are those 3 strikes, you pull the permit. And then if you pull the permit and they don't have a short-term rental anymore and continue to rent, there are penalties and fines beyond that. So if there's 1% that are bad, we want to try to ensure that the 1% are held accountable by pulling those permits. As I mentioned, there's only been 2 that have been pulled over the last 6 years. We have 1,300 permits. Even just 1 a year should be better than 2 over 6. And so that's why the subcommittee and then the Planning and Zoning Commission really intended to have a clear outline of how do we hold owners accountable?
Yes.
And absentee owners accountable in particular. There's a number of folks out here in the audience that are great managers that
Yes.
provided great feedback and are doing the right thing. And so this shouldn't impact them in terms of pulling permits, but the absentee owners and those that we need to hold accountable will hold accountable.
Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, and to the committee, I just have a question. Since a lot of this hinges, as you well know from the conversations that we've had in the public at large, on accountability and reliability, on this software package, how do we have assurances that it will meet the need? And where has it been used elsewhere, and what is the track record? Because I'm certain that you've done a deep dive, but for everyone that's here, no one knows that, including me.
I'll give my outside perspective, and then Christy, who's the expert in the space. The software, they used similar communities as examples. So communities where the local population is a smaller number, but there's a lot of visitors every single year. So some prominent communities in California, prominent communities within the state of New Mexico. The list of features is beyond what we have today, and particularly the public-facing features is what I, as a member of the public, was excited about. I don't know who's a short-term rental. I know that we print out a piece of paper and mail it. I have 0 paper in my house. I throw all that away, but I can find it online as a younger person from a younger generation. So the public-facing elements I'm excited about, and the presentation, in my opinion, is well worth it. Even just having the consolidated dispatch, it's a bad saying, but one throat to choke, knowing where to go if you want something resolved goes a long way, in my opinion. And I'm sure Christy can provide more details since she's looked at more software.
So unfortunately, we were on a limited time when you guys were offered the demo from the company to give you as much as he could in a short amount of time. Luckily for me, I have sat through about 10 different demos with him, and every single demo that I've gone through with him, he's done a little deeper dive into other features that the program offers. And from what I've seen and the fact that I've been doing this with the current software for 3 years, I feel that this company, if we're able to go in that direction, would provide with their technology and their packages, because this is all they do. This is all they want to do. They're not trying to umbrella to where one-stop shop, you can do everything with them. This is the only thing they want to do. And
Property management.
Exactly, and they have done a great job of designing a program that does and gives us everything that everybody has been asking for years on data. It runs specific reports. All of the complaints goes to the direct property, and it's logged in that property. So when I click on it, all of their bookings show for the 2 years prior and current, and that's already booked for like the whole year. It shows all of their complaints, and their owner, it'll show all of their properties, all of the sites that it's booked on, because it also provides more capabilities of scrubbing more websites than just the traditional websites, because there are new websites coming out every day. It goes through a 3 process of AI technology, then it goes to humanize. The humanize then get to identify to make sure that that property really does belong to the address that it's saying that it does. And then that gets sent to me so that I can make sure that I give the last look at it, and then a letter goes out. For problem properties like you are asking for, Council, they will give me the complaint, I can keep it logged, I can follow up with the owners. Why didn't you respond? Get all that information, keep a log of all that. So in the event that we do have to suspend a permit and we bring it to you, at that point, you have all of the information, all of the data, and then you guys make the decision to revoke the permit.
Okay.
Chris Santi, back to Councilor Jackson's question. Have you talked to other communities that are using this same software?
So the people that I've talked to well, I've only talked to Rob at GovOS, at Deckert, which is the Rentalscapes. The people that I have worked with from GovOS have left GovOS and are now working at Deckert Technologies for Rentalscapes. So the people that got me completely trained in GovOS are going to be the next people to train me in that because of how much better the system is.
And keep in mind, we started out with Granicus some years back, and then they were purchased. They were more of a data company that didn't have a lot of the functions that this one does. They were purchased by someone else, and then they gutted the features. So we lost a lot of access, and then they became something else.
Host got bought out by
Host, yes,
Granicus, it was
Host.
backwards.
That's- I had it
And then we
backwards.
went to MuniRevs, and as
Yes.
soon as we went to MuniRevs, they got bought out by GovOS. And one of the first questions that I asked Rentalscapes is if they have any prospects of
being
being
bought out
purchased.
again?
Yes, and they said, no, they're privately owned, and they do not have any intention of doing that. They don't want to do that, and this is the only thing that they would like to do.
Well, I applaud you for the idea that you did touch on it, but just to reiterate it, there is a feedback loop with the complainant so that they're not left just hanging and wondering. Because I think that's where a lot of frustration and anger obviously would occur.
Correct. The call center for the complaint, they will follow up. If in the first time with 30 minutes, they'll follow up to make sure that the person that called in the complaint, that they have been addressed by either the property manager, the local contact, whatever the case may be, depending on what the complaint is. If it's not resolved, then they call the local contact, whoever they're supposed to call. They'll call them again to make sure that they follow up with the property, whoever they're supposed to call. And then they will call the complainant again, just to make sure it's been resolved. So there is follow through with that complaint line.
Thank you.
Anything else, yes, Joe?
Well, thank you all for all your hard work and
Yeah.
all the different town hall meetings you've had and amongst yourself. But I do agree that the $50 is a little low and that we do need to raise the rates. But I'm going to ask the question that a lot of people have asked vocally and a lot of people have asked through email is that, and going off of also Councilor Corey's question and the answer that you gave him is that you've got a startup cost. And then after the startup costs, you have an operational cost, which is lower than the startup cost. The question is, people are asking, and I would also ask for myself, is that, what is it, about $700 and some odd thousand when you multiply it out times 565? When you take the operational costs, the startup costs, and so on, the question is, where is all the other money going to? They want to know, where is it going to? Where is it going to the general fund? Is it going to this? Is it going to that? That's just a question that everybody's asking. I probably at least heard it several times and through email several times. And then after that answer, I have one more question.
So in the council packet, we did give the breakout of how we would spend that money for the first year. And as Councilman Corey's question as well, there are some startup costs that are in there that for the ongoing operations program would be less than that. However, the other part that we are going to be doing as an organization is fully accounting for the cost of doing business for the village when it comes to the impacts of the short-term rentals upon our operations. And so we may be able to identify additional needs in various village departments that could then be supplemented through the cost that would be, for example, the $60,000 for a vehicle. If it can be demonstrated that there is $60,000 worth of impact to, for example, to the solid waste department that are not being addressed right now, that money could then be moved to address their costs. If we cannot demonstrate that, that there is additional costs that are not being met by the cost of the village of providing service, directly related to short-term rentals, yes, it is a very reasonable and fair response to say that the permit fee should be reduced in future years.
All right.
Go ahead, Jacob. Did you have something?
Yeah, I'll add a comment as well. There's a couple different ways that the committee looked at it, because the committee had the same concerns when we talked about that increase. We looked at it by square footage, we looked at it by number of bedrooms, we looked at it, do you start at one number and then go down? I think the staff's outlined some of the numbers. We looked at all of those and realized that as we're going to an annual inspection, there's a hard cost of doing those inspections, along with all the other costs that Alex have outlined. So there is a possibility, and it was discussed within the subcommittee, but we ultimately landed on the fine and fee structure as proposed, to have a higher initial fee as we get this going, and then maybe a reduction year after year, because instead of going every 2 years for that review, we're doing it annually. So in theory, we can identify issues within properties sooner, rather than going that too. And then the other thing that I'll kind of reiterate as well, we looked at other communities within the state, and this is within the same realm that they are proposing. And I think that's within your packet as well. So those are the two comments I'll make.
I think the statement, though, with that is the government doesn't turn anything back. They don't reverse any fees, and they don't do that. I mean, it's good to say it, and I'm not being ugly. I'm just saying that that's something, I think that's where the public would say, yeah, right.
Yeah, and
Except for
that
we've
wasn't my
done it
intent.
on GRT, we've done it on the wastewater treatment plant, so I understand what you're saying. You're trying to cover all your expenses. And what we deal with is different departments that are picking up the tabs for a lot of these, working overtime after hours to do multiple pickups on the same streets because of, yeah. And then, but obviously we have a problem because that's why we're here. We've been getting complaints for the last couple of years. Believe me, I've been one of those. I have a 5-bedroom story that's rented every day next to me. And at first it was rough, but now then they seem to follow the rules once we got the owner's attention. So I get it. So do you have anything else that you'd like to sell us on? Close us, good. Because you got a whole bunch of people getting ready to talk.
I don't believe so, and as we said, if there are questions that come up after the public hearing, we'll be happy to answer them.
I just have one more question.
Okay, Joe's got another question.
Just before we get to the public hearing, all that, it's on the infractions. Okay, it's just, you have here where you have the occupancy, parking, noise issues, and all that stuff will be unresolved if they're not unresolved within 90 minutes. And then underneath that, you have that if you don't get a response from the manager or from the responsible party within 30 minutes, that would be an infraction. So my question is that if you don't get a response at all, then of course you're going to have an unresolved issue. So that would be technically 2 unresolved issues with 1 incident. So I was just wondering if it would be better to change the language in the 4 where it says a failure of the local contact to respond within 30 minutes is an automatic unresolved issue. Could that be changed to if the unless, say, within 30 minutes, unless the issue is resolved within 90 minutes? Because it sounds to me like you're going to get 2 strikes for 1 issue. You could potentially.
So that was not necessarily our intention there, to get the 2 strikes very quickly. Of course, compliance is our number 1 thing here. The reason why that we put in for that to be an automatic violation, unresolved issue for not responding within 30 minutes is to have that local accountability for someone to do that. We would be open to having that clarification in there to say that there would not be multiple violations that would occur with a single incident.
Yes, because I just think that you could get dinged twice for the same issue, especially if you go and do respond and get the issue resolved within 90 minutes, but you failed the 30 minutes and you get dinged. But 30 minutes is a short time, I think.
Yeah.
The other part is we, of course, would be administering this with a lot of discretion, and we would probably not bring forward, if it were a situation like you were laying out there, where they didn't initially respond within 30 minutes, but they got it resolved within 90 minutes, we would probably not bring forward a unresolved issue for not responding within 30 minutes, because the result of the interaction, we'll put it that way, is they resolve the problem within 90 minutes. Yeah.
And I think the intent there is that people are picking up the phone. So the complaints that we got from community members is that they would call a number, and the owner or the manager wouldn't respond, pick up the phone, or even acknowledge that they were filing the complaint. And so the reason for the strict 30 minutes is to say, hey, you need to pick up the phone if people are calling you. And it's going to come from the consolidated dispatch. So you need to pick up that phone. The not picking up and then the 90-minute, I think that's up to the discretion of the council. I think that is fair not to have two incidents in one, but we want to make sure people are picking up the phone and that there's a local contact here.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, Alex, the people that have a home that is a short-term rental that don't live here have to have somebody.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
that is already part of the ordinance. The existing ordinance
We just
as it
haven't
is in
been
effect
enforcing
today.
And now there's a way to enforce it.
We just haven't been able
Better
to
way
keep
to
track
enforce
of
it.
it. You know, officers will drive by, everything looks and sounds good now, and then they drive by. So.
Yep.
Did
They're
you
in
have something
government,
else?
I'm in sales, so I'll give you the pitch, if you will. The last thing that I'll end on, I think it's totally fair. I know that there's a number of folks in the community that are doing things the right way, and it's not necessarily their burden to fund the program when they're doing things the right way. There is a cost to set up this department, to get it rolling so that we have the accountability. So maybe it's not the $565, but it is some number significantly above the current $50. So I'll leave that to the council. And I would say that there's impact that we are trying to address through this increase, and maybe there's other means that we can do that. Maybe it's a use fee that is directly charged to the individuals coming rather than the business owners that are running the short-term rental. I know that was discussed in the committee, but because our scope is short-term rentals, we were looking to address short-term rentals and the impact to our local community, and this was the best way that within our realm we could do that. You as a council obviously have broader powers, and there might be other ways to address solid waste, water, fire, police through other means if this is not the method that you would recommend. But there is a base cost to set up a department. And I appreciate your time and giving me the opportunity to speak here and the other members of our committee. I think, Mayor, you laid this out. This is the first time we've ever had a structure like this within the village. And I hope that it presented a well-thought-out plan to this group and saved you all some time.
No, you guys have done a great job and listened to everyone, I think.
Yes.
So you've taken the information, you've put it together, and so the council has now make a decision. So if we're through at this portion, what we'll do is, what I'd like to do is, because we're going to have public input, you know, and then we're not going to have, it's not going to be a rebuttal and argument back and forth, but we want to hear what everyone has to say. And then I want, if there's something that we haven't asked that you have an answer for, I want you to be able to answer that question, but not have an argument back and forth. So could we just let them come to the microphone over by Zach? And as I call your name, if you want to speak to the short-term rental, to the item number 1, we want to hear what you have to say. And because I know that we have a little different audience than what we've had in the past. Usually it's people are just upset that there's a thing called a short-term rental. But we understand that it is very tied together. It has a lot of impact to our community, positive and negative. So.
Open it up.
That's what I'm doing.
Oh.
Okay, so now we're going to open it up to public input. And so I'm going to call your name, and if you want to speak to this, if you'll just come to the microphone. If you're speaking to the other matter because we didn't label them, just tell me it's the next one. Carly Hamilton.
Mayor, can I get on the list?
Yeah, sure. Why not we let?
Late, I apologize.
You got the spot right on the bottom. Go ahead, Carly.
Okay. Hi, Mayor and council members. Thank you so much. My name is Carly Hamilton. I'm a full-time resident here in Ruidoso. I'm a registered nurse who's moved here, but I've been coming here for decades before moving here full-time. We bought a condo, 6 bedrooms, to have family come and stay, and then we started doing short-term rental as a way to pay for that as we were vacationing here. As I've moved here full-time now, I just run it as a short-term rental, never had any issues at all with complaints. So I'm obviously concerned about the increase, the 1,000% increase in the renewal permits. I consider myself at this point a small business owner. I mean, this is an investment. This is something that I have to look at the bottom line. And as our, increase in water, increase in the insurance has tripled since the fires. I mean, we're finding it hard to find insurance. We're just looking at how this is affecting our ability to even continue. In fact, I'm probably going to sell it because it's cost prohibitive at this point with the fees being added and constantly being hit with increase after increase. And, we can't just keep passing that on to our renters because they're going to find other cheaper options for rentals. So I guess my question is, why can't this increase to the renewal fee be covered under our lodging taxes that my unit alone, I think I paid $9,000 last year in lodging taxes. So I would love to see a portion of that be used for the software that's supposedly being bought one time. The other issue is, why are we increasing the inspections to annually from biannually? I mean, I just didn't hear a reason why. This is obviously going to drive up the cost, needing someone full-time. $180,000 for an inspector. I've been there every time they've inspected my unit. It takes about 30 minutes. They're looking at really basic things. They're not inspecting like structures and, they're looking at, do you have fire alarms and smoke alarms and fire extinguishers, locks on your hot tubs, things like that. It takes like 30 minutes. So I don't understand how we need to go from biannually to annually, because that's obviously driving up the cost. And I mean, I guess I just didn't hear that in the last meeting, but those are my questions. Thank you.
Do we have a better oh, you got one?
Yeah,
I'm sorry we had you lean over like that. So we've got one now? Okay, thank you very much. Eddie Crane, are you wanting to speak to this? No? Eric Husley? Hughesby. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
And I forgot to mention, it is a 5-minute time limit, and I'll give you 2 minutes.
I'll try to get out in 3. I don't know, I took a lot of notes during the presentation here. First of all, I want to thank y'all and the council for your really trying to balance all the interests. I'm a locally based short-term rental owner. I moved to Lincoln County when I didn't think property managers were doing a good enough job, and this was going to be my retirement, and I just thought I had to go all in. I lost my big moneymaker in the fire. I had 2 cabins. Now I have 1 small little 2-bedroom. With the assistance of Mary Austin back here, I bought a replacement property that I've been working on for 5 months, getting it ready. And so I'm all in on this community. And I just really appreciate trying to balance all the interests, because I understand very well. I see both sides of everything. There is what I consider to be a problem property adjacent to the one I just bought, where for some reason they're marketing it as a party house where there's just loud music every time there's a guest. It's like, well, we've had guests playing their music too loud, but it's 2 a year. It's not every dang time. So I just want to reiterate my willingness to pay our fair share for whatever costs we impose on the community. I'm going to ask you, I really appreciate you, Councilor Corey, digging down into the finances. And I lost 75% of my income when I lost my big cabin. I got a good insurance check, but it doesn't pay for everything. I'm out probably a couple $100,000. It's a big burden right now. And if there's any way to shift, have the lodger's tax keep paying for a year or two to phase something in, boy, I'd really ask you to do that. That would be extremely helpful. I apologize, I took so many notes, my thoughts are going to be a little bit scattered here. When we talk about peer communities, I don't think there's any peer community who suffered what this community has suffered with the fire and flooding. So I just ask you for a little bit of grace on that. I heard something about picking up the trash. I'm the guy who picks up the trash when the bears go through the bins in my neighborhoods. I go through there at least 3-4 times. I live 10 miles north of the village limits. I'm here in Ruidoso 4 or 5 times a week, and I look for trash every single time and get that done. There's a mechanism that you might or might not be aware of for the out-of-town owners, and Airbnb has a program called co-hosting, where somebody who's an established host help somebody else run their thing. And that's an easy way to have, if somebody's in El Paso or Amarillo or wherever they own their property from, you can kind of push them into having to have a co-host here in the local community. Totally in favor of accountability. Thank you very much. Hate the idea of being lumped in with the bad operators, and so we're totally in favor of that. Just one question is about backups. We have a really detailed system where I check with my housekeeper. Anytime I'm going to be traveling, if there's an issue either from a guest who's not satisfied or from a neighbor complaint or anything, and my fear is I'm going to be on an airplane or I'm going to be driving down to Alamogordo with no cell service and something comes in, is there a way we can get that where there's a backup number and we can just be sure that we don't miss a call when, I mean, there's places right here in the village where I can't get a phone call. So I think I hit most of the high points there. I just, once again, thank you all so much for doing this to make this work for everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And you wrote those questions, Tim? Angie Olivas?
Okay, how are we doing this? Okay. Mayor, councilors. Okay, so I have 24 years' experience in vacation rental management and ownership. I currently manage about 69 properties, down from nearly 90 due to the recent disasters. As we rebuild, I would like to address the proposed short-term rental increase. I'm good with all the other changes, amendments to the ordinance. I'm really happy that we're not going to have fire pits. That's a big relief. Thank you for that. Currently, the fees average $82.50 annually, not $115. The suggested increase to $565 is excessive compared to what other villages in our state charge, which is about $300 on average yearly. The village manager in his report said we had 1,314 active short-term rentals. The memorandum is using the figure of 1,200 to come up with the figure of 565. So what is it? When I looked at the yearly report of short-term rentals, it averages 1,377 a month, not the 1,200 figure. Why the difference? Are we taking into account that people, like the lady that spoke earlier, are going to drop out because of this fee increase? If you take the number of 1,314 active short-term rentals and do the math, the fee would drop to about $492 annually. Then the software is designed to scrub and find those rogue properties. And I heard it was about 1,000 rogue properties. Even if you pick up 500 rogue properties. How much more income is that going to add to this budget that we need? Again, additionally, the reported budget for personnel, $180,000 for an inspector and an assistant raise. That seems inflated compared to the posted salaries for similar positions. Right now, the village is advertising a code inspector, a code officer, at an average of $46,000 a year. A police officer is being advertised for under $46,000 a year. Why are we going to pay this inspector? You know, why are we budgeting 180? I hear, you know, other perks, other bonuses, plans, that type of thing, but still, that seems excessive. My- 2 more minutes, okay. The 24-hour support line will reduce dispatch calls. That should be clarified. Is that dispatch calls to the police department or the village? Excuse me, I have allergies. Is that, which one is it? If it's the police department, how many short-term rental calls really hit the police department? Last time I checked, it was very minimal. Also, that we're going to subsidize the public offices. We're already doing that through our gross receipts tax. Short-term rentals are being taxed at a commercial rate already, and that's been happening for years now. And we were told back then it was to help subsidize these public departments. Our restaurants and entertainment venues paying fees to also subsidize these public offices. We've been through so much. All of our property owners have suffered so much loss and heartaches. Short-term rental owners are earning a lot less net income than you assume. This fee increase is excessive. If short-term rentals raised our rates 500% to our visitors, would they choose another more affordable destination spot to take their revenue? Be fair with a realistic increase. Don't cut off the hand that feeds our village. I propose we increase to approximately $300. Let's be fair. We consider a slight increase in the lodger's tax. How about just taking it up a fraction? How much would that bring in? This would help offset the costs instead. Let's table and revisit this proposal for a fairer increase that acknowledges the challenges short-term rental owners face. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is Antonella Rosas. Did I get anywhere near? Antoinette Rosas. Rosas? Rosas.
Good afternoon, Mayor, councilors. Thank you for your time. I'm looking at just maybe some clarification within the ordinance. I am a resident full-time, so I have rentals next to me, but I also work at Innsbrook, and we have approximately over 50 rentals. And we want to ensure compliance, but we want to make sure that the wording within the ordinance is clear so that we can do that and be a good neighbor. I appreciate all the help. I know it's a difficult process that Christy goes through. I mean, with 1,300 and plus in the community. But I apologize, I don't have the ordinance with me, but I think it was section 5, and it talked about occupancy and having 2 people per bedroom. Just asking for clarification on that, because I know probably 75% of rentals have sofa beds, loft areas with additional bedding. They're trying to maximize as much as they can. But what is going to be acceptable? Because as we go into compliance, and an inspector goes in, we want to make sure that we are compliant and that we're not getting hit by a reinspection or having to empty out units where there's extra bedding. So just asking for clarification on some of the wording. I appreciate your consideration on that.
Thank you. They've got the question and we'll get it covered.
Thank you.
Darian Ross.
Darian Ross. I am a Realtor, local Realtor, been a Realtor for 19 years. My bread and butter comes from selling houses. And along with what Angie said, this increase is going to really affect not just selling homes, but the overall income or revenue from short-term rentals. Have you ever considered, instead of hiring someone on staff, having a contractor who can and is experienced in real estate, who can be the one to take the calls, who can be the one to learn the software, and who can be the one to do the inspections?
Thank you.
Brett Nichols. Did you just wink at me?
I might have. I'm just kidding. I think I just blinked. Anyhow, some of you guys know me. I know everyone up here pretty much for the most part. I've been here 31 years, and I've been a Realtor for 17 years here. And I know everyone's doing the best absolutely that they can to make the best decision for our community. I just think it's important that we consider the broader implications of tweaking little things that seem like little things on Airbnbs, because we make these short-term rentals, which I went to college for finance. I think of them as investment vehicles for people. We want these homes to be attractive investment vehicles for people, or they're not going to want to buy it, or they're going to want to sell it, like she said. And that's my biggest concern, is we could do something that seems like nothing and create a sell-off, essentially. The word gets around that things don't look as good. It's too hard to be an Airbnb owner. People want the opportunity to be able to offset their expensive home by renting it out every once in a while. So short terms are super important. Like Angie said, if there's 1,000 bad apples out here that aren't even compliant right now, we could potentially get those fees from them, and we won't have to have everyone else pay $565. If we find 1,000 other people, there's $300 more bucks from each of them. If they do a more reasonable fee around $300, really, that's not a huge thing, but it just sounds bad. The more things we pile onto these things are going to sound bad and make them, like I said, investment vehicle. Think of it like as a beautiful sports car. Right now it's a sports car, but if you take off the wheels, like, how well is that going to move? Like, you got to have all the working parts, and we have to just consider everything. That's all I'm saying. So I guess that's really all I'm saying. I'm sure I'm missing 1,000 things in my notes. Do I have a minute up here still? How long do I have up here technically?
3 minutes.
Got 3 minutes.
Okay. All right, so keep going. So yeah, I also lost a house in Alpine Village. I worked really hard building that for 2 years and fixing it up, and listed it for sale May 17th, and it burned down also 30 days later. So I'm in the same boat with a lot of folks on that. I'm just thinking, how cumbersome are we making owning a short-term rental? Because right now I own 2 of them. I'm trying to get more of them going, but it's a lot of work, for me to invest in this community. And I'm like some rich person, just have a lot of money, but to put down 25% with a bank on investment properties already a lot for me as it is. And, the long-term rental problem hasn't even been brought up too much. And I'm glad that we all know that that's an issue, but that hasn't been like a factor today. So we can also utilize whatever we build to help with that problem, because we all want more housing here. Because I've got kids, and we all want people to be able to stay here, and workforce housing and everything else is super important. And I think that all of the short-term rental owners can agree that that's important. I also want to bring up the fact that, we start stifling short-term rental owners' ability. It's like, I'm one of them. I know I see multiple others in this room that they don't just own short-term rentals, they own other businesses that people come here. Like, short-term rentals are tourism. This is a tourism community. We're a tourist community, and we absolutely depend on these things. So it's important that we consider, like I said, the broader implications of what these small tweaks might do long-term to our market. Being that I'm a realtor, I don't want the housing value to go down, and everyone who owns a property here wants the property value to keep going up. So yeah, anyway, I think that's mainly it. Let me just look at this really quick. Sorry. Yeah, I've got a million notes here, and they're all crazy. Anyway, thank you guys so much for your time. I'm Brett. Thank you.
Thank you. Sherry Stovall. Okay, thank you, Sherry. Mary Austin.
Be nice to your elders, right? Hi, I'm Mary Austin. You guys know me. Thank you for your time, consideration. I also want to give a shout out, though, to past realtors who had a lot to do with why that ordinance was written in the first place. Cindy Clayton Davis, a lot of them spent a lot of free time helping put that thing together. It's a lot easier to modify something that's already built. So thank you, realtors. You are an important part. I have a lot of notes. I like some of the things. I come from, a background of being on boards, and one thing I've learned is even if it's your idea, you should be able to poke holes in your own idea because that's how you hone it and perfect it. So poking holes and making comments shouldn't be taken as a derogatory thing. It should have a positive outcome. One of the things that I noticed that you brought about was the impact on the community. Trash, which is funny because normally when we have all of our families up at Christmas, we have full trash cans. And our friends from the county come and fill our trash cans. So I don't think it's a short-term rental issue. I don't think a house that has 1 bedroom has the same impact that a house that has 6 bedrooms. So to lump them all together, to me, doesn't seem fair. I also am hyperly aware, as all of us are if we own homes here, you can only do so much. If the occupancy rate drops or the amount that we can charge for a rental drops, but the fees increase, it becomes unsustainable at some point. You've got to look at numbers. I'd really like to drill down and find out how many rentals we really have left after the fire, because we got numbers. I mean, have we really quantified that and made that determination for certain? One thing that was interesting I didn't know is, so the lodger's tax is no longer going to have to supplement, which is a bonus to the village for operating expenditures.
No.
They're going to have this money. Well, wherever you're going to spend it, it's no longer going to supplement. The fees will carry the cost. So that's kind of an inverse thing. You're no longer using that as a supplementation, plus you're increasing the fees. The last thing I'm always afraid of is software programs. I'm on a committee here with the village that we've had problems where we've paid enormous amounts for software, and in 5 years, 4 years, they don't support the software. They increase the price, they sell out, and then they have you over a barrel and you're starting over paying for this enormous thing. I like the idea of contract labor, see how to get it done, be the best, almost be like Elon Musk. Let's figure out how to get the best bang for the buck. Handle the problem people, let the people that are doing it right contribute the way they feel they need to contribute, but don't lump it all together. The last thing I thought, that 24-hour call line, and this may just be a misunderstanding, it sounded like it was almost like a snitch line. So you could call on your neighbor and say, they've got 10 cars in the park, in the street. Well, they might be having an anniversary party. Were you supposed to let the public just have access to this 24-hour to complain when it's not even a nightly rental? If I'm in my personal home and I'm having something and I got a lot of cars there, someone going to call and complain. So I wanted that clarified as well.
It's about nightly.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mary.
Next is Bob Maroney.
Let's see, I'm a realtor, I'm a landlord, joker, smoker, de facto
I thought you
mayor.
were going
No
there.
offense, Mayor. Just some random thoughts. Mary touched on this. We manage the River Resort over there. We have 34 rentals. We've been doing it for 11 years consistently. I think the police have been called one time, and I called them. The way you're setting us up to solve a problem of the party house, but you're penalizing everybody. I mean, the party house, nobody wants a party house. I get it. You live next door to them. It's a bunch of creeps coming up, getting drunk, shooting fireworks off at night, endangering the community through fire pits. That is not the majority of rentals. Most people are fit, independent travelers. They're families that come up here. They're chill. They go to bed at 9 o'clock at night. They're actively engaged, in outdoor activities. And it just seems like all of us are suffering the burden of not policing the real problem. So why don't you consider a tiered system, based on max occupancy that's advertised all over these websites you're talking about? So if you have a house that says 16 people, you should pay $1,600 a year. If I've got a little one-bedroom cabin that sleeps two and it's a honeymoon couple every weekend, why should they pay the same freight? I think, Mary, you touched on this too. So that's just a thought. Why not a tiered scale based on max occupancy as advertised? I think it's a much fairer way to distribute the cost of this program because, yeah, I understand. You got to have costs. Quick political note, it seems nationally the mood is shrinking government. But here we are starting a new department. I mean, really? We can't figure out another way to do this, like you say, through contractors, et cetera. And, okay, I'm a private business guy. If my business is, auditing the short-term rental market, I'm not buying a $60,000 vehicle for someone to drive around and do approximately, if there's 1,200 units, that's 5 per day. And if there's 1,377, that's 5.75 per day. So I think they can get by in a used Subaru all-wheel drive for $30K. Just those kind of things. It just seems like the budget's excessive. When you look at that, I could rip that apart. I know the software charges are fixed. I get it. Some of the charges are fixed or not negotiable. But it seems pretty fat, the numbers posted there that we all have to fund with the 565 fee. Oh yeah, the complaint thing, the snitch line, as you called it, Mary, where are you?
She left already.
Okay, to me, again, it's like, who's gonna adjudicate the issue, okay? You got 3 snitches, someone has an axe to grind against their neighbor, they're just calling. You're still gonna have to have a police officer show up and kind of really get the facts. What's that?
2 minutes.
Yeah, easy. So it just seems like the snitch line's kind of weird, and it's like 30-minute response time. I mean, that's just ridiculous. I'm sorry. We have an emergency phone 24/7 that all my managers take home with them at night. So we have response, but sometimes, they're sleeping. I mean, are we supposed to have 24/7 monitoring? I mean, seriously, we're supposed to have 24/7 staff to get that call in 30 minutes or we get dinged? That doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, how about 30 minutes within, 8 a.m. in the morning till 10 p.m. at night or something like that? But after hours, I mean, that's just crazy. I mean, the cost of me having my own 24/7 call service to answer the snitch line, it's just prohibitive. Yeah, I think a lot of the stuff's been said already. So just, again, the extra costs. When I look at a lot of these second home owners and even, the costs that we have at the River Resort, I mean, our occupancy rate's about 37%. So we're not using the same amount of water as a full-time resident. We're not using the same amount of garbage collection as a full-time resident. So 63% of the time, these places are empty and not utilizing village services. So I think that has to be factored into the calculation as well when we always talk about these extra costs. And that's all I got. How'd I do, Raphael?
You did good.
Nice. I got more. I come up with some stuff.
Bob Gaffey, did I get that right? No.
Hey, thank you all for the opportunity. So many of the points that I've said or that I'm going to cover, it'll just be a quick rehash. So he mentioned I'll call it the snitch line. There has to be some accountability for that. I want my short-term rental to be managed well. I don't want people coming there and partying. That causes me maintenance issues, so it's in my best interest. But as they mentioned, all you have to do is have a neighbor that has an axe to grind with you, and they can call 2 or 3 times over a week and have bogus complaints that could ultimately ding me and cause me to have my permit revoked. That's not acceptable. That's not a way to do business. A 1,000% increase to these permit fees. That's cost prohibitive to the small businesses. I have one rental. I grew up in these mountains. I enjoy coming here. I'm just a short drive away, but I come here to enjoy these mountains. And so I maintain my home and I rent it to help supplement that income. If I can't rent my home, that house is going to go on the market, and then somebody else is going to pick it up, and they're going to figure out real quick that maybe they can't do a small business here as well. the operating cost, it seems like we're a little bit premature from the outside looking in to set up this whole new department. If we can't directly tie our permit increase to the operating costs of a department, then we're premature. So one thing that you have to remember is our permit fees, they have to be directly tied to those operating costs. There was an extremely important U.S. Supreme Court decision within the last 6 months that ruled in favor of somebody who took the state of California to court and won based on exorbitant permit fees. So that's a real risk to the city. So I'd ask you guys to at least look at that, because if you say, yep, $585, if a handful of Airbnb people want to get together and challenge that, there is U.S. Supreme Court jurisdiction over that, or not jurisdiction, U.S. Supreme Court case law that goes directly against exorbitant permit fees. So please check into that. I don't want to see the city have to have more legal fees. You've already got enough problems with the fire. We don't need any more fees. The increase to those fees, as you guys have heard, and I'll voice my opinion. I thought that my permit registration renewal this year was $118. It's been a couple months ago, and I've slept since then. So $118, a respectable increase fee. That's I want to pay my fair share. I want to support the city. Permit fees, insurance fees, cost and garbage, the utility fees, they all went up. Insurance, as everybody's mentioned. So to have 30% increase to my utility bills, to have 100, 200, 300% increase to insurance. I don't know what it's going to be when I renew next time. Luckily, my insurance renewed right before the fires, so I'm one of the lucky ones. But next April, who knows what it's going to cost me to continue to operate that small business. So I'd ask the council to really look at the opportunities to streamline the process, really dig in and design the department before we go forward and do something like that, and then really evaluate those fees. So thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, that will conclude the public. There was nobody online that raised their hand earlier?
No, sir, but Governor, I'm sorry.
Governor?
Mayor Crawford and council, I want it to be noted for the record that the clerk's office did receive 10 letters of opposition, and each of you have those copies in front of you.
Okay, thank you. We'll close the public portion now. And you heard the concerns. I know some of you have addressed, and it's misunderstanding still, but I'd like for you to clarify those things. So if you could go at Alex, and let's start with like the snitch line. You have 24 hours, and I just don't like Hooker's house over there, so I keep calling and complaining. Do my complaints stand, or how do you verify that they're even real?
Sure. So the way that the 24-hour monitored line would work is, again, that they would take those calls in. If it does, and then they come back to us. So before they become
Thank you.
before they become something that becomes an unresolved issue, that we would then put a strike against someone, we will verify that that is an actual complaint violation, that there was actual noise that was happening there, that there was over occupancy on there. We will also work with the vendor that would be operating that to be sure that if we do get a high number of calls that from a particular person on a particular property, that we can figure out how we can then discourage that person from calling and making bogus complaints.
Okay, so we have a regular resident. Say Eric Vaughn's having a party at his house for his kid's birthday. He's got 30 cars over there, and I call and say, so-and-so address is having a big party. You know, it's not noisy, but he's got too many cars over there. Does that even show up on the list? Because it's not a short-term rental, number one.
Correct.
So it wouldn't make any difference.
So it would not be something that we would consider to be a strike against them,
Right.
because it's not a short-term
Okay.
issue.
And so are there 1,000? That's the first time I've heard that number. And it's too loud, then we're sending Popo.
Well, see, that's the other, if I may, Mr.
Go
Mayor,
ahead.
that point, back when I in my former position, if somebody rents a property and they're having a family reunion, and even though my brother's here, we're the only two staying there, but the whole family comes that day, it's America still, and you can do that, right? You can still come there and you can do that. Now, again, if you fall into, oh, you're disturbing the peace or whatever, I got it. But you say you're going to verify this the next day. If nobody else went out, whether law enforcement or anybody else went out to eyes on, yeah, there was 20 cars there. We couldn't even get through there. How are you going to know that?
You can take it out.
Okay.
Well, that's also where we're providing additional resources for law enforcement, the police department, to go out and verify these complaints.
Okay, thank you.
What kind of resources? Because we're still short in the police department, and we're still trying to hire.
That's not going to be our new person's duty?
That's what I'm hoping he's going to tell us.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So in the preliminary budget that we proposed in there, that we put in, I'm forgetting what the number was.
180 grand.
No, that was so that there would be additional $125,000 in the provisional budget that would be allocated for fire, police, code enforcement to have additional resources to go respond to complaints.
Okay, well, what about the additional employees for 180?
All right, so that, yes.
What he's asking for answer, what he just asked answers two questions with your answer that you just gave.
So the $180,000, that is the full cost of hiring an employee. It includes benefits.
One person?
Two persons. Those are two
people.
persons.
Okay, well,
yes.
you got to make that clear. And that includes all their benefits, insurance,
Correct,
and
that
everything
is
else.
two persons. That would be the current position that Christie has. There would be a slight upgrade to that because it would be changed from to a program administrator type role, and then also hiring that new full-time inspector. So those are two positions, the full cost to the village. Worked with, got that number from our HR director as to what the cost of providing each position would be. And those are, that number, $180,000 is the combined of those two positions.
Okay, and so did I talk over the answer a while ago, 1,000 unaccounted for short-term rentals?
The information that we've been provided is between 500 and 600
Okay.
short-term
That's
rentals.
still a
That
lot.
is a lot.
So at one point, we have 1,200 you're basing your budget off of, and we list that there's over 1,300 and have. Why is that?
So being, conservative in regarding to budgeting, we don't want to overextend. In there was also somewhat built in, I would use the word attrition, that folks would say that the permit fee, whatever the increase might end up being, would push people out of the market, to speak, I guess, in economic terms. So being conservative, we took that lower number of 1,200 to base our budgeting number upon.
Okay. Yes, sir, Jacob?
I'll just make a comment on the snitch line, as we're calling it. Having it verified by the staff and then by locals and by folks that are calling in. Today, Councilman Letterman gave the example of somebody that's called repeatedly 3 times this January for that one property. We don't have any visibility into that. We would now have visibility to know folks when there is an issue and those that are just calling to complain, right? So if, Councilman Hooker, you complain about my short-term rental every weekend, even though people aren't there, we'd be able to identify that because it's tied to you in that complaint. The other thing that I'll comment is we did discuss visiting hours. We opposed that as a short-term committee because there's already nuisance. You can call and complain about anybody. If it's Eric Vaughn's little kid birthday at 1 o'clock and you want to complain about that, you technically can.
Sorry, Eric.
It's easy to pile on. Nothing personal by any means, but that's why that's why we elected not to have a cap or visiting hours, because if it's a nuisance, people should be able to complain regardless.
Gotcha. Okay, what were other questions, Christine?
Mayor, could I ask, Judy, could you comment on lodger's tax and what it can be used for and what it can't be used for?
Councilor Corey, councilors, so lodger's tax at 5% is at the max it currently is. So based on that percentage, we have to use 40% for advertising, heads and bids, expenses, and then 60% has to be used for non-heads and bids. It can be used as brick and mortar to remodel, improve tourist-related facilities. We can use it for transportation and other things like that. However, at the village, we've always taken a position where we're going to try to attract as many people as we can that come into the village. So currently, the village spends way more than 40% on advertising, getting people into our town-based events and expenditures. I don't know what the exact percentage is that we do, but I know it's way more than 40%.
Well, and those rules are by state statute.
Yes, they are by state statute. No, they're not village, so we're just following the state rules.
And it has to be expended within 2 years.
2 years, yes.
And so for things like the concerts in the park, other quality of life issues that we invest in, Xterra, Ironman, those type of things.
Yes, any event, Mayor, that we can justify that is bringing people to our town qualifies as a heads and beds. In addition, we have also used the money to improve facilities like the convention center. We've done some stuff within the parks, doing, right now I can't even think of any other ones, but we have done other infrastructure type expenses to enhance our facilities.
And that all goes before, and for anybody who doesn't know who she is, she's our finance director. She does a great job. Our budgets always, everything always comes in on time, and we always get our budgets submitted ahead of time. And we expect 0 audit findings again this year. But so I know we're not supposed to talk about it, but anyway, the money that comes in, we don't ever put it in general fund because it's against the rules.
No, the money is strictly just designated in lodger's tax in a separate fund out of the general fund. The actual number is 214. In addition, when we report to the state, because each quarter we have to report our current budget and our current year-to-date revenues and expenditures, I have to go a step further and actually put in what we did actually expend and receive in lodger's tax. So that's something new that the state is doing. We used to just hand in a report. Now we have to do it in their accounting software that they have provided for us each quarter.
And currently, the last few months, our lodger's tax is down about 50%.
Yes, sir.
Mayor Crawford, Judy, what is the max that you can implement on the lodger's tax?
At 5%, and we're at the max.
Okay.
And so currently, the money goes into a fund that is reviewed by people just like you, that we have 2 that are in lodging. We have 2 that are in a business in Midtown or around town, and then we have 1 at-large person. So we have 5 people that sit on that board. They review the budget. Judy sets up, shows them how much money they have, and then we have every year people come in that want to put on, whether it's, for example, one that's coming up is the Tattoo Expo. We used to have the Motorcycle Expo. We used to have the German thing. Those are used to. So now then we've replaced that with other entities that are coming into the community. A lot of them are homegrown right here in the community that put on conventions. They raise that. They come in and ask for advertising funds. They just don't get it, but the board approves up to an amount. And then those folks have to, it's a reimbursable. They have to show they've spent that money in accordance to the rules that the money has to be spent on before they're paid out, right?
Yes, sir.
And so that's the way that money is spent. And so it's all accounted for. We have another board, like I said, like planning and zoning that worked on this, that's made up of y'all, that sits on that, and then they look at it, and if they feel like it's something that is in with the marketing plan, of course, we have our tourism department that sets in, and how do we support those things to make them successes? And so that's what we've been doing for I don't know how many of the last few years. And the tourist department, ours has won many awards statewide and be recognized as a leader. In fact, a lot of the New Mexico True marketing is adopted from the village of Ruidosos. So those are things that we're already doing. So we were already at the max, is what you're saying on what we charge.
And we do report our monthly collections in our monthly report that's on our website. Village of Ruidoso. In the finance department, we report on lodger's tax, gas tax, cannabis, and GRT. Plus, we also give updates on our capital projects and our cash balances and general fund balances.
And just to let everybody know, last year was a record year that we had the most that we'd ever collected.
Yes.
In lodger's tax, a little over $3 million.
Yep.
And it had been growing consistently over the last 10 years. And then this year, we're down 50%. A lot of it, the reason is anybody that stays longer than 30 days, a lot of our short-term rental folks were gracious enough to extend those into 30 days. There were over 100 of those. I thought that's what y'all were going to say, why that we're not at 1,300 or whatever, we're at 1,200. But I don't know that number because it's floating. And then also the businesses that are in town, the dump trucks and all of those that are spending 30 days at a time, they don't pay lodger's tax. So we do get a piece of GRT out of that. And so we're in the business just like y'all are, the businesses in here, we make money off GRT. So the village only does good when the businesses do good. Sometimes the other side of the coin that we hear a lot of is that we're abused as citizens because that's all you think about is money, money, money. And so we have this tightrope that we walk. Without one, we don't have the other. And so that's why I'm proud that you guys are all here, and we hear a lot of you, all the emails that we get, we read them all. I know I haven't responded to some of them, and I used to do short responses, and people found that flip it, so I don't do that anymore. I just, because it's hard to answer 200 emails sometimes. But we do read every one of them, and that's why you can be proud of these folks up here. They do. They read them all, and we realize it's a very difficult situation that everybody's in. That's why I appreciate these guys, Jacob, and the staff that's dealing with it to get us all the information. It's not perfect, and that's why, it's going to be a difficult decision. How do we find a fine balance here? And so does anybody else have any comments?
Jacob, a question, and I thought it was appropriate. Did you all look at the occupancy? You ended up with a limit of 2 per bedroom. Did you consider the sofa bed, the bunk beds in a bedroom?
Councilor, Mayor, yes, we did consider that in terms of how do we ensure that that folks are utilizing the space appropriately and that it is safe. We did consider that. The ordinance as proposed and that was passed through the board was 2 adults per bedroom. So if there's a 16-bedroom house, I think was the example, you could have 32 adults in that property. If it's a 6-bed house, you could have 12 adults. We did consider sofa beds and other communal spaces as living situations. The feedback that we got from stakeholders was that it's the party houses where they pack people in communal living spaces that are the problems, not the 2-bedroom, 4-bedroom condo or small cabin.
Okay, so the point of distinction is 2 adults per sleeping unit.
Correct. So if it's a 1-bedroom cabin and you're a couple with 2.5 kids, you'd still be within the right. Yeah.
Thank you.
So have you had any consideration to outsourcing? That's what we heard brought up here. And was there any comments on that?
I'll have staff take that. We didn't really talk about the outsourcing, so.
So kind of touching upon the personnel cost on there. If we were to have a program that we could have it fully operational 24 hours, 7 days a week, there is a cost to that. And so that is where having the vendor that would provide that 24-hour response with their call center would cover us for that, rather than us having to provide that at what we feel is a pretty good price that they have suggested that they would be able to do that. Also, you would need to have the people to go out and check that. And so that is where we feel it is appropriate for that to continue to be something that, whether it is a police fire response or if that is a code enforcement response, that we would then have the additional resources through the raising of the fee to then provide staffing for them to have that staff available.
Well, Mr. Mayor and Jacob, since you were on the committee, and one of the stringers of questions that went through many of the comments, which we appreciated, was how did you come to the conclusion that a 1-bedroom equaled a 6-bedroom in terms of what I would call a flat fee?
Counselor Mayor, the fee costs based off of inputs from staff was the required amount to provide the services as outlined, so ensuring that we have all of the things that we've talked about within the ordinance. So I guess the question behind the question is, why not start with a smaller fee for a one-bedroom cabin and work your way up? The feedback from staff is that the baseline cost was right around the number that was put in front of you. Now, there can be pushback on that. You can remove services, things can change, all that good stuff. But they said the baseline cost to review properties, to ensure 24-hour staffing, and to address complaints is at that number. And so if we wanted to do a sliding scale, staff gave us the feedback that it would actually increase at this rate, this starting rate. So even if it's a one-bedroom versus a six-bedroom, they're all starting at the rate that's in front of you, and it would only increase from there. So the gentleman gave the example of a 16-bedroom paying $1,600. That's probably pretty accurate as that rate continues to increase.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay, you don't have any more questions? Y'all ready to make a decision?
Mayor, for the purpose of moving this forward, I move approval of adoption of ordinance 2025-01, an ordinance amending the Village of Ruidoso Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapter 54, Land Use, Article 2, Land Development Code, Division 4, Zoning Districts, Sections 54 to 72, Overlay Zones, and Appendix A, Fees, Fines, and Penalties, with the amendment to change the annual fee to $300.
A second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion? Wow, that's going pretty quick. Roll call, please, ma'am.
Counselor Corey?
Aye.
Counselor Jackson?
Nay.
Counselor Eby?
Aye.
Counselor Letterman?
Aye.
Counselor Salas?
Aye.
Counselor Hooker?
Aye. Okay, motion passes. Thank you for everybody's hard work. We'll move. We want to take just a 5-minute break, and then we'll be back at 20 after. I just pulling your leg, man.
I put my name on there, but I didn't get to speak.
Where was your name at?
I put it on the wrong list.
On the other one.
One thing that would help all